Execution with Richard Garrison. Why he races to train and never trains to race. This interview is by far my toughest, and not just because this man raised me and we both know each other through and through, but also because he is by far the most successful, most distinguished guest that I've interviewed so far. I don't mean to brag because he's my father, but Richard Garrison consults many of the Fortune 50 companies that you're familiar with. His list of credentials is long, from serving on several boards of directors to serving as a clerk for a bilingual clergyman at his local church. This servant leader exemplifies every attribute that this podcast is all about. Growing up, I took a lot for granted about men based on what I knew of my father. But as I grew to know more men, especially in the working world, I was continually shocked and disappointed that literally none of them had the same moral value or substance of character. Many of us hold our parents in a higher light because they raised us and had a major impact on who we've become. So we can all be a little biased. But when you get to see your parents have that same impact on literally thousands of friends and strangers alike, you know you are blessed to be born into something special. And after listening to this conversation with Richard, I think you'll agree that this 11-time Iron Dad is truly something special. Come learn all about the art of human performance with Richard Garrison. Yeah, so anyway, let's rock and roll.
Okay.
This is the Extraordinary Podcast, and my guest today is Richard Garrison. Dad.
Which is very weird.
Yeah.
Dad.
So, obviously, you were one of the first people that I thought of when I first thought up this idea of doing the podcast. And I was, and you obviously have a lot of the characteristics that I wanted to cover with this program. But it was really, really tough for me to think about trying to interview you and how to approach that interview and how to get information out of you, but at the same time not try to be braggadocious with it, because obviously I already know so much about you clearly. But then I want everyone else to know so much of the things that I already know. So it's like, how do you extract that information in a way that's somewhat interesting to all the other readers, but yet still works for our dynamic. So this is going to be really interesting, but thank you.
Well, it's great to be here. And, there's a famous saying that says the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. So I don't know if people are interested in what you do and appreciate the great work that you're putting on. Hopefully that reflects that something stuck along the way. I don't know that I know the things to do, whether it's being a parent or being successful in other areas of life, but I know a lot of things that don't work. And through the life experiences, we all grow. And I applaud your efforts, sincerely, even though you're my son, I applaud your efforts to be trying to take positive things that people can do in their lives, because this is a journey that we're all on, and trying to improve at whatever area that is of our life. So it's great to be here, and thanks for having me.
That actually is a perfect segue into one of the first topics I wanted to talk to you about. And one of the reasons that I've started this journey was to be an influencer. And what I think that means is the ability to impact people in a meaningful way. And one of my missions is to learn how to motivate people to change and to improve and to get them to be their best selves. And that, I think, originated from you and you and Mom in particular. Growing up, there was always this caveat whenever I would meet someone and they would say, "Oh, you're Richard and Donna's son." And then they go on about, how great they think you are. But to a person, what they would do is they would take the time to tell me about what you had done to impact their lives in a meaningful way. And I just was curious, is that something that you've always had? Where does that come from?
Well, tough question. Well, first of all, I don't think you do want to be a good influence on other people, but again, I don't think you intentionally say, my job is to try to influence other people. Obviously, we all know that when you walk the talk and you set an example, good or bad, that's where you truly influence people. You mentioned your mother, and certainly she has been a tremendous influence in my life. I married up, for sure, and she was always just the good, best person that I knew. And I think whatever you define in life as being a good person, whether that has spiritual connotations or simply caring and giving of service, giving of self to other people, I think that starts as a foundation. And again, we all are come to this earth life blessed with various different talents and strengths and weaknesses. And as we take those and try to grow our strengths and overcome some of our weaknesses, we learn to be a better self. And as we become a better self, we're able to better give to other people. Again, whatever your definition of give is, whether it's time, talents, money, but just giving of self. One of the things that specifically I did early on was I wanted to be a teacher. And again, through high school, along in there in college, I thought about I would love to teach, because teaching, true teaching, is giving. Not an egotistical teaching that, hey, I know everything and I can tell you about it, but I've learned about something and I want to share it with you.
That's sharing the knowledge.
Sharing knowledge, and much like what you're trying to do now. And so that became, for whatever, I don't know where it came from, but that became a real guiding light in my life. As such, I would try to learn things, and again, whether it was being a good father, a good husband, a success in the workforce, learning all I could in school, success on the athletic field, whatever it was, being the best that you could be, and then as you learn things, sharing those in a teaching mode. Teaching does require that you be a good communicator and have some interpersonal skills. And one thing that I did do to become better at that was any opportunity I had to speak publicly or teach that would make me uncomfortable, because I was a little shy and didn't want to do those kind of things, I would take that opportunity. I challenged myself to take that opportunity to be better. As you well know, your mother and I are very religious. We've attended church all our life. And I volunteered to teach Sunday school. And for 50 plus years, I have probably taught. And while that is a simple thing to do, it helped me every week learn about something and then be able to tell somebody about something. And so that's paid great dividends, certainly in my professional career, in terms of doing public speaking, consulting work, communication skills within the work environment. But by teaching, I think, and sharing, indirectly, I think you influence people.
And that's kind of molded your career a little bit over the years, because when your career first started off, while you were always probably in leadership roles, that teaching role was more something that evolved over time. And now it's to the point where now, when your career started off in very specialized industries, mechanical engineering and all these different professional aspects of a career, but then over the span of your career, it then morphed into really that teaching role. That teaching role kind of took over at some point.
Right. And as you mentioned, I mean, I was an engineer by formal education, though I realized very early on in my career that while I enjoyed the technical aspects of that, I wanted to be involved with people and the communication and sharing and collaborative building, that type of thing. So 25 plus years of engineering and working with people, though, in that realm, gave me a tool set to then later go into consulting business. And
which is what you do now.
Which is what I do now, and I do two types of consulting. One, Working with the Franklin Covey organization, I teach a process called the 4 Disciplines of Execution. It is a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling book, and is a
by our man Chris McChesney.
Yeah, by Chris McChesney, right, dear friend of mine. And about 70% of the case studies in that book are clients that I've been fortunate enough to work with. And it's taking simple communication tools with some organizational discipline and putting those two things together in a collaborative way for teams and organizations to produce truly extraordinary, record-breaking results.
And would you be willing to share some of the organizations that are utilizing your plan right now?
Well, certainly, there's a number of Fortune 50 organizations such as Marriott, Ritz-Carlton, Carnival Cruise Lines, Georgia Pacific, Walmart, Home Depot, so a variety of different industries like that, Under Armour.
And you guys, even back home, you guys had worked with the school system too, didn't you? Was it DeKalb County Schools or something?
Yes, we've worked with a number of Georgia school systems as well as others across the state. But this process, it's not about what widget your industry is producing or what service you are delivering. It is any business or organization. It could be we've worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations. Any organization is trying to take a group of diverse people with talent, individual talents, and bring those together in a collaborative way to produce results and execute. And that's why it's called the 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's not called the 4 Good Ideas of Execution or the 4 Principles. It's the 4 Disciplines. It was the principles are based on some research done by Dr. Ram Charan from Harvard Business School back in the late 90s. He wrote a book on execution, and we took those principles and have packaged them into some simple ideas that people can relate to and then apply on a repetitive basis. So it's about organizations and teams producing true, extraordinary results.
And although that book is obviously geared towards organizations, that organization could also be in your family. It's also a very good personal read for how it relates to your family as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting. We say that it's all about focus. Many of us set goals. We all set goals, and we've had various ways of doing that. And goal setting is the first step. But then once you set goals, it's about disciplining yourself to make the behavioral changes necessary to actually produce the result. Simplistic example. What's the number one New Year's resolution in America? Lose weight.
Probably.
It trumps 2 through 10 combined. As a country, we're obsessed with that, okay? We've all tried to lose weight at some point. It's the curse that we all have. How many times have you heard someone say, I'm going to set a goal. My goal is to lose weight? We've said that. You've all said that.
Everyone, yeah.
But that's not really a goal. That's a mission statement or a vision statement. So a goal needs to be very specific. So then you might say, well, my goal is to lose 10 pounds. Okay, better. But when are you going to get that done? So a real goal must have where are you now, where are you going, and when are you going to get there? You must have a starting line, a finish line, and a deadline. So, for example, if I were going to lose weight and I weighed, let's say, 200 pounds, and I wanted to lose 10 pounds, I might say, my goal is to go from 200 pounds, my starting line, to 190 pounds, my finish line, by December 31st, 2019. I've got a finish line. And then to get there, it's great to set the goal, and now we've got a specific goal that we can measure. Every day I can track, am I making progress on that goal? But to hit a goal, I've got to change something that I am doing. And that's true of any goal in business or your personal life. So I say, what actions might I take to lose weight? Well, we all know the 2 classic things are consume less calories, i.e. some form of a diet or eating a little bit less, burn up more calories, i.e. some form of exercise. So I might say, in order to lose those 10 pounds by December 31st, I am going to